Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sieti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT. thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 403 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing very well. You and I just got done taping our Patreon episode, which, when this comes out, will have gone out on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And a very interesting case on the murder of Miranda Fenner. It's a case that took almost 20 years to solve. And the way they solved it was fascinating.
It was.
So if you're on Patreon, check that out. If you're not, now's a great time to sign up.
Get on over there.
We also have a brand new episode out on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, where we're talking about the death of 19-year-old Kanika Jenkins. Kanika attended a party at a hotel in Illinois and was later found inside the hotel's freezer.
And you see things like that sometimes on movies and, different TV shows where you see people go into a freezer and get locked in there. And I think that would be scary.
Oh, very scary.
If you didn't have the way to get back out.
But this is an interesting case because there are differing opinions.
Absolutely.
On whether her death was an accident, a murder, and we get into all of that. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Abby Walker.
Hey, Abby, Texas Walker.
Ranger.
Yes.
Victoria S.
Hey, Victoria.
Lydia.
What's happening, Lydia?
P. Wilder.
What's up, P?
Grandma Gigi.
Uh-oh, Grandma.
Allah Khatib.
Hey, Allah.
Deborah Churchward.
What's going on, Deborah?
Michelle Pence.
Hey, Pence.
Deanna Winland.
Well, thanks, Winland.
Devon Brown.
Well, thank you, Devon.
Or Devon. Might be Devon.
Or just
D.
Okay.
Don MacArthur Self.
Hey, Don MacArthur.
Bart and Stephanie Smith.
What's going on, Bart and Stephanie?
And last but not least, Deb Miller.
Oh, good old Deb.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Tia Javellana.
Hey, thanks, Tia.
Yeah, appreciate all the support. We also had Gibbs what I believe is the biggest PayPal donation we've ever received, and it came from Jill Peterson.
Boom, Jill said. Boom.
Boom.
Like that, yeah.
Like mic drop.
Yeah, yeah, like that, yeah.
Yeah,
thanks,
amazing.
Jill.
So thank you, Jill. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am ready.
We're talking about Freddie Owens. Freddie Owens was convicted of murdering a convenience store clerk in 1997. He was executed just earlier this month, making him the first inmate executed in the state of South Carolina in 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, long time.
It is.
Between executions. On November 1st, 1997, 41-year-old convenience store clerk Irene Graves was fatally shot in Greenville, South Carolina. Irene was working at a Speedway convenience store on Lawrence Road in the early morning hours. The shooting occurred at 4:07 a.m.
Well, we got Speedway around here.
Yeah, there's Speedway right down the street from my home. A security camera captured a fuzzy video of two armed, masked men entering the store. They pointed their guns at Irene, and she gave them $37.29 from the cash register. She was unable to open the safe and was shot in the head.
Over $37.
And it makes you, sick to your stomach.
It does.
To think about, this woman being fatally shot. But then when these people got away with $37, man, I mean, that just makes it that much tougher. Now, I don't know what their safe system was like, but actually around this time, 1997, I was managing a bunch of gas stations, and the safes that we had were all kind of time delayed.
Yeah.
So you couldn't just open them right away. You put in a request, and it took some time to get what you wanted. And you didn't just open the safe. You got a roll of quarters, or you got some ones, or you got some fives. You know what I'm saying?
You just couldn't open up and take everything.
No, it didn't work that way. And maybe that was part of the problem. Either she couldn't get the money fast enough, or she couldn't open the safe at all. Like she had no access.
And they got frustrated and decided to shoot her.
Another clerk was behind the store, unloading a freezer when she heard gunshots and found Irene's body. This clerk didn't witness the shooting, but did see two men run past her. Irene Graves was a single mother to 3 children. She had one son in college and 2 children living at home who were just 8 and 10 years old. Irene was a devoted mother and worked 3 jobs to provide for her children.
Wow.
She worked at the Speedway store, a local Kmart, and a buy-low grocery store.
She was definitely trying to do what she could to take care of her kids.
She was doing everything. I don't know how she could have done any more. Her family said she was often tired, but always smiled and joked with others. And how could you not be tired?
You're working 3 jobs.
Yeah. And, you're making meals. You're doing things for your kids. You got 2 kids that are 8 and 10. They can't do everything for themselves.
That's true. I mean, so you're working 3 jobs. Really, you're working 4 jobs when you think about you're a mom.
Yeah. Despite working so much, Irene made time to take her kids to dance lessons and cheer competitions. Her relatives warned her that she was working too hard, but she always said, I never want the children to feel because they have a single parent, they were denied anything.
Wow, that says a lot.
So, I mean, this is Superwoman Mother of the Year type stuff here.
We always say parents will sacrifice a lot of things for their kids. This is a case where she's basically sacrificed everything for her kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was willing to do anything. That's what it sounded like. Friends recalled that Irene had been threatened by gunmen before, but she couldn't quit her job because she needed money to provide for her kids. And I think I've told some stories over the years about my time, working 3rd shift when a manager called off at a gas station. There are some scary things that happen when you're working alone at a gas station.
I can't even imagine what pops up during those late nights.
One time, a guy tried to rob me with a screwdriver. It didn't go well for him, but he tried to rob me with a screwdriver.
He wasn't going to not make the effort, I guess.
Yeah, and the fact that there was bulletproof glass did not deter him. And the fact that I could lock the doors from inside the booth. So I just locked the doors and called the police and waited for them to show up.
And just watch him stabbing the bulletproof glass.
There was nothing he could do. On November 11th, 1997, 19-year-old Freddie Eugene Owens and 18-year-old Stephen Andrew Golden were jailed on charges of murder and armed robbery. In connection with the murder of Irene Graves, SWAT units arrested the young men at their respective homes without incident. According to the Greenville News, Crime Stoppers received a tip on November 10th and informants gave the police information that secured the arrest warrant.
These guys were just young men.
Yeah, 18, 19 years old. Is it shocking that they probably were not able to keep this to themselves?
Oh, yeah. Not shocked at all.
But what is amazing is that someone had the courage to call it in, because that doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't.
You know, a lot of these criminals talk to their friends about what they've done, but for whatever reason, the friends don't take them seriously and they end up not calling the police. But that didn't happen in this situation.
But you think, you'd have to be somewhat nervous about doing it, because if they were willing to kill a clerk, what are they not willing to do?
The Greenville News reported that an armed robbery charge counted as an aggravating circumstance, which qualified Owens and Golden's cases for the death penalty. It was reported that Owens and Golden participated in a robbery spree from October 31st into the early hours of November 1st with two other young men. They were both charged with the October 31st armed robbery of Prestige Cleaners on South Pleasantburg Drive in Greenville. 22-year-old Nikio Vance and 19-year-old Luster Young were named on the armed robbery warrants in connection with the Prestige Cleaners robbery. Owens and Vance were also charged with armed robbery, carrying a pistol unlawfully, and possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime in connection with an October 16th robbery at the Value Lodge on Duval Drive. Two men entered a man's hotel room, brandished a pistol, and stole a pager and a gold watch from him.
Just trying to think what you could do with a pager back then. I remember having a pager back in the day. I know you had like 5 at the same time. Strange. I'm just thinking, if you took someone's pager, how would that benefit you?
I don't know. I'm assuming you could sell it and they could reset it maybe or something like that. But I think what you have here is a group of young men who are just out robbing anything and everything. Owens was also accused of shooting a man riding in the back of a truck on South Pleasantburg Drive on September 22nd. The driver stopped in the median and offered a ride to a pedestrian. The pedestrian pulled out a gun and shot into the truck.
So random.
Well, I just talked about, a group of guys out robbing. Now, what is this? I mean, this just sounds like violence for the sake of being violent.
It's almost like they're saying, we'll do whatever we want to do. We're not worried. We're not scared.
Finally, Owens was charged with shooting 31-year-old Thomas Davenport on September 29th in a parking lot behind a Lawrence Road business. Davenport was shot in the head but recovered. So no doubt, this is a group that was out committing crimes, but you have to look at Owens, especially, as a guy who was out shooting people. Once in the commission of a robbery, it sounds like at least twice, for no apparent reason.
And clearly didn't seem to be concerned about the outcome.
Yeah, but I just question how many of these types of individuals are. Because if you really deep down were concerned about the outcome, would you do any of this in the first place? I mean, I'm not saying that it's laws or consequences that stop everyone from doing bad things, but I have to believe a lot more people would do or commit crimes if there were no consequences.
True.
It's just some people don't seem to either weigh them, think they're going to get caught, or care one way or the other.
Isn't that kind of like the principle behind the purge? There's no one day.
There's no consequences. Yeah, but for these people, it's like their whole life.
Yeah.
There's no consequences.
Right.
In March 1998, it was reported that prosecutors would seek the death penalty against Freddie Owens and Stephen Golden. Their trial was scheduled for February 1999. On February 9th, 1999, Stephen Golden pleaded guilty to murder, criminal conspiracy, possession of a weapon, and the commission of a violent crime, and 3 counts of armed robbery. His guilty plea occurred after 2 days of jury selection in their trial. He agreed to testify against Freddie Owens. Prosecutors promised to consider his testimony in his favor, but they didn't take the death penalty or even life in prison off the table. So you get 2 days into jury selection and say, yeah, I think I'm going to plead guilty. You're going to testify against your buddy, but you're not getting a lot.
No, not a lot in return.
They'll take it into account. I mean, you're not getting any guarantees at all.
I'd feel pretty uneasy about all that.
Well, he must have felt very uneasy about the case against him, is my thought. In opening arguments, Solicitor Bob Ariel told the jury that Freddie Owens, Stephen Golden, and 2 others went on an armed robbery spree on Halloween night, 1997. They robbed Prestige Cleaners, then a Conoco hotspot convenience store. At 4 a.m., 2 robbers, Stephen Golden and Freddie Owens, entered the Speedway on Lawrence Road, where Irene Graves was working. The prosecution argued that Freddie was the shooter. The jury would see a tape from the security cameras and hear from 2 key witnesses, one who participated in the robbery and one who drove the getaway car. And it was said, Gibbs, that in total, the 4 men took $700 from 3 stores during their crime spree.
Just doesn't seem like it's enough money to make it worth your while. I hate saying it like that.
Well, again, back to consequences. $700 versus the death penalty or life in prison. I mean, if you want to play Let's Make a Deal, that's a pretty easy game to play.
Yeah, and when you think about the fact that they're probably splitting that 700 by 4, right?
Yeah. That's
not really taking home a lot of money there.
No, it's so hard to comprehend how someone or a group of people can get together and say, yeah, this is a great idea. This is what we should be doing. Defense attorney John Rollins argued that Freddie Owens was not responsible for the robbery and murder. He claimed Owens had an alibi, and the evidence would show Stephen Golden was the real killer. Deputy James McNeely testified that minutes before the Speedway shooting, he was moonlighting at a hotel across the street and drank coffee with Irene Graves and a coworker. He warned them about a robbery earlier that night on Augusta Road. 20 minutes later, McNeely heard about the robbery at the Speedway store and drove across the street to find Irene lying in a back room, surrounded by a pool of blood. Freddie's mother, Dora Mason, testified that in November 1997, Freddie pulled her aside while she was playing cards with her boyfriend. He said he was high on marijuana, and before he knew what was happening, he killed a woman. He cried and asked her not to hate him.
Makes you wonder the mindset there. What was she thinking, hearing this?
That, but also, what was he thinking? You know, are these real tears? Is this real sorrow? I get it. People do some strange things while they're high. I don't know how often marijuana makes people kill.
Yeah, I have a hard time visualizing the fact that marijuana was the driving factor for this for him.
Now, if he had said I was high on meth or, crack or I don't know what some of the other drugs are that can make you do some things, bath salts or, whatever, it would sound more plausible.
Yeah, I'm thinking high on marijuana. What would you do? Did you go to Speedway and
steal a bunch of Doritos
and Cheetos and took them home,
According to solicitor Bob Ariel, Dora Mason gave a statement to police the day Freddie was arrested in connection with the murder. However, at trial, Dora denied giving that exact statement and said she couldn't read. She testified per the Greenville News, "I did not read it, period. I signed it." Defense attorney Carl Allen suggested deputies strong-armed Dora Mason into giving the statement. The words weren't hers, but were crafted by law enforcement.
Look, I know in the past, and I don't know if they do it today, but in the past you can hear stories where, somebody would come in and say, all right, tell me what you know. And they'd run by it, and another officer would come in, tell him what you just told me. And they would tell the story again. And at the end of the day, somebody from the police department would go write it out as a statement for the individual and say, okay, we took what you said to us, wrote it out, just need you to sign it, saying that's what you told us. Now, if they read it or don't read it, I don't know, but that becomes an official statement.
I thought you were going to say back in the day they were slamming people's heads off of desks and stuff to get them to talk.
Potentially.
Because I think some of that happened as well.
I think so too.
Investigator Jeff Kinley testified that he went over the document with Dora, word for word. He asked her if she could read, and she said yes. Dora signed the document twice and initialed the change of her daughter's name, which led the prosecution to argue that she could read. So I think, you have to figure this out. Is, this a woman who really was coerced by police into giving a statement, or did she give a statement, but now she's worried about her son?
And regretting it.
And regretting that she said what she said. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. Dora testified that Freddie did confess to a crime, but it wasn't murder. He said he shot a man for making advances toward him. The jury watched a video that showed two masked men entering the store with handguns. Irene rushed to open the register and then fell behind the counter after she was shot. Irene's co-worker, Mary Buhner, testified that she was outside getting ice when she heard what sounded like a water balloon popping. Two men ran past her. She entered the store, locked the doors, and found Irene behind the register. Aisha Austin, Freddie Owens' girlfriend, testified that he told her he robbed a store and shot a woman. He bragged that he wanted to go down in history for committing the most murders in Greenville without getting caught.
Wow, this is something that he said when he was 19 years old.
Well, he either said this to his girlfriend and, had these thoughts of wanting to commit, a whole slew of murders, or she wasn't real happy with him and decided to stick it to him, one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's a big statement to make. even if you're upset with somebody.
It's a big statement to make up.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm not saying that's what happened. But again, when you talk about, a jury or a judge having to determine someone's credibility, well, these are big things being said.
Sure.
Who's telling the truth and who's not?
But with a statement like that, if it is true and he didn't get caught, what would have happened?
Well, I'm assuming he would have gone on shooting and killing people and racking up, a significant body count. On the stand, Stephen Golden admitted he changed his statement and lied under oath throughout the investigation. The defense questioned his credibility and accused him of being the shooter. Well, it's not too hard to question someone's credibility when they admit to lying under oath and they know that he was there. So does it make sense that they're going to try to, shift the blame to him as being the actual shooter?
Why wouldn't they? They're there to try to put reasonable doubt into the jurors' heads. That's one way to do it.
Stephen told the jury that he, Owens, and two others got into his grandmother's vehicle on Halloween night 1997. They each carried handguns and wore dark clothing. He and Owens entered the Speedway store with their guns out. Owens went behind the counter, and Golden stood in front of Irene Graves. He prompted her to move with his gun. She opened the first cash register, and Owens grabbed the money. Owens instructed her to open a safe below the counter, but Irene said it was jammed and told Owens to check for himself. When she couldn't open the safe, Owens said, "Oh well," and shot her in the head.
Well, but now knowing that he just wanted to go around and kill people, okay, I guess this is what he's going to do. When I was originally thinking, man, what a terrible thing to do just because she couldn't get the safe open.
Right. So if you believe Stephen, if you believe Freddie's girlfriend, Aisha, he was out to kill people.
Yeah.
So maybe the I couldn't get the safe open wasn't the deciding factor. Maybe he was going to kill her either way.
Yeah, regardless.
Now, the identity of the shooter could not be determined with certainty based on the security footage. Additionally, an investigator testified earlier at trial that the murder weapon was never found. So basically, you have the prosecution saying it was Freddie, the defense offering up that no, Stephen was the shooter. The prosecution also called on Nikio Vance, who participated in the robbery spree that night. Vance also testified that Owen said he killed a clerk. He confirmed that the four of them were smoking marijuana and drinking when they decided to go on a robbery spree. They split up in the early morning hours to rob a Waffle House and the Speedway. Vance and his accomplice decided not to rob the Waffle House and met Golden and Owens at their vehicle, which was parked behind an abandoned restaurant. Vance testified that Freddie Owens said he shot the whore because she wouldn't open the safe. So again, damning testimony, all of it.
Right.
If you believe that these people on the stand are telling the truth.
I can't believe he called her a whore.
Well, if it's true, I think it just shows you the level of callousness, the way he shot her. If he said, oh, well, now he's calling her a whore. He doesn't know this woman.
No.
He doesn't know that she has 3 jobs and children at home. Owens borrowed Vance's gun to commit the crime. Vance realized Owens was telling the truth when he looked at his gun the next day and saw a bullet was missing. He threw it off a bridge into a river because he was scared of being charged.
Well, could have came back on him. So I understand why he did what he did.
In closing, the defense argued that the prosecution presented inconsistent testimony, unreliable witnesses, and there was a lack of scientific evidence. The defense also suggested a conspiracy among Owens' incarcerated friends. And there would have to be a conspiracy, right? Because all of these people are testifying that he's the shooter. So if they're lying, I think by definition, it would have to be a conspiracy. They would have had to have gotten together and decided, here's what we're going with. On February 15th, 1999, Freddie Owens was convicted of murder, armed robbery, possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery.
That's a laundry list of convictions.
Yeah, and it's going to land you in prison for a very long time. That is if you don't get the death penalty. In the early morning hours of February 16th, so this is just the day after he was convicted, Freddie Owens murdered 28-year-old Christopher Lee, a fellow inmate at the Greenville County Detention Center. Lee was serving a 90-day sentence for misdemeanor traffic violations.
It's like running a red light or something.
Or maybe too many parking tickets or
that's true.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Owens was housed in a dorm-style cell with 11 others. Officials explained that Owens and Lee were classified as medium to high security prisoners. Lee's classification was based on a habitual driving offense, 2 domestic violence charges, and an assault and battery charge. Okay, so he had some stuff on his record,
right?
But he's in with a convicted murderer. Christopher Lee called his father and his girlfriend at 4:30 p.m. on February 15th. At 7 p.m., he called his ex-wife, Susan Lee, and told her he wanted to put his life back together and hoped to move to Myrtle Beach. Freddie Owens was convicted at 8:20 p.m. that evening. He returned to the county jail at 8:44 p.m. He watched a little TV, he exercised, took a shower, and was locked in his cell with other inmates. Christopher Lee was beaten to death between 3 and 4 a.m. At 6 a.m., guards entered the cell to take Owens to the showers and found Lee unresponsive with a sheet wrapped around his head. Jail guards said that when Freddie was brought to jail after the conviction, he was laughing. He was dancing. He even paused to flirt with female officers. Owens was returned to the dormitory cell because jail officials weren't told about his conviction. He acted the same as he'd been acting for the past week. And he didn't do anything to make guards believe he should be separated from other inmates. So, I'm taking from this, Gibbs, that if they had known he'd just been convicted of murder, maybe he would have been separated.
Maybe because they would have concerns that he's going to act out.
Well, he's got a lot less to lose.
That's right.
After being convicted of murder. Officers checked the cell block 8 times between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. On 2 occasions, officers didn't notice anything was wrong. The assault occurred in a spot that could not be seen from cell windows or video cameras. Inmates came out at 6 a.m. for breakfast and acted like nothing happened. It was Owens who was the one who told a guard to check the cell.
So he really doesn't care what happens to him because he's like, hey, go check the cell.
Almost like, see what I did.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk about it more, but what are you thinking if you are Lee's family?
Oh, you've got to be shocked, pissed.
Yeah, furious at the system, right?
Yeah.
That he was allowed to be put back in with a person just convicted of murder. On February 17th, 1999, the jury sentenced Freddie Owens to death. And apparently he laughed at the verdict. Each juror was asked if they supported the verdict. They all said yes. And Owens muttered profanities like bitch and bastard as they spoke.
He's something.
He's a class act all the way around.
Oh, yeah.
Before the sentence was handed down, doctors and social workers testified that the Owens family experienced poverty and violence for 3 generations. Freddie and his siblings were once taken from their mother's custody after being found in a dark house with no electricity, food, or warmth, and no supervision. So it doesn't sound like he had an ideal childhood. That's for sure.
And not really surprised, though, with his attitude and stuff, how that probably helped craft who he is, create who he is.
It could have had a big deal or a big part in it. The defense called on a psychologist and 2 former teachers to testify about Freddie's background. Middle school teacher John Presley said, as quoted by the Greenville News, he could have been a fine athlete if someone had taken an interest in him. He was never given a chance. The court heard that Freddie had antisocial personality disorder and was raised in a violent and aggressive environment. Freddie's mother was beaten by her boyfriend. Freddie was once chased home from the school bus, and his stepfather locked him out and allowed him to be beaten. At the age of 7, Owen saw his grandmother shoot a person.
That's a lot of things to take in and go through.
Well, you just talked about, did his childhood kind of help shape who he was at the age of 19? Well, we're finding out some more things. It's hard not to think that all of this had an effect on the person he grew into. Psychologist David Brunetti said Owens was quick to anger and acted impulsively. He's someone who very easily perceived threats or insults from others. So basically, he's saying, he had a hair trigger.
Very thin hair trigger.
Which a lot of people do. A lot of people are quick to anger. But as you and I have pointed out many times, Gibbs, there are a ton of individuals who have had jacked up childhood. It doesn't mean that at 19 they walk into a store, put a gun to the head of a 41-year-old store clerk, say, oh, well, and then shoot them in the head.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a factor, and it's why we talk about people's childhood. Did it cause them? Did it force them? Did it make them do it? No. Is it a contributing factor? I would say the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Everything we go through, right, helps form the person that we become.
This is true.
Owens was also charged with murder in the Christopher Lee case. The jury heard Owens' full confession. He told state law enforcement agents that he punched, kicked, and choked Lee until he was sure Lee stopped breathing. The following statement was published by the Greenville News. Owens told an agent, at 11 p.m. on February 15th, 1999, myself and the other inmates in my cell block watched the news and saw that I was found guilty. I went to bed and woke up whenever they came to get one of the other inmates to take him to Perry, a state prison. While they were getting the guy ready to go to Perry, Christopher Lee said, you won't be the only one because Freddie's coming down there with you. I told him to shut up. He told me his cousin was on the jury. I asked him if he knew that they convicted me. He said, I know because my cousin was on the jury. I then walked into his cell and hit him in the eye. He fell down on his back. I got on top and started hitting him mostly in the face and throat. I took a pin from his right hand and stabbed him in his right eye. I then tried to stab him in the chest, but the pin would not go in. Then I stabbed him in his throat. I don't know if the pin went into his throat or not. He started bleeding out of his mouth. There was a sheet tied into a snare laying on his bed. I reached out and got it and put it over his head and neck. I wrapped it around my left hand and pulled it tight. I started hitting him in the face with my right hand. Then I started choking him with my right hand and pounding his head against the floor. He never fought back. After the first punch, he was out of it. He was still breathing, and the stuff coming out of his mouth stunk. So I stood up and stomped on his head and body with my feet.
Brutal.
Yeah, absolutely brutal, but also very detailed. I mean, this is a detailed account, a blow-by-blow account of how he killed this man.
Yeah, and at some point, the Lee family is hearing this.
Oh, absolutely. But, what I really want to focus on is the part where he's out after the first punch. So, he's saying he didn't fight back. He couldn't fight back.
He was unconscious.
He was unconscious. He went on to say, I saw a black and blue lighter under the bed. I grabbed it and burned him around the eye and on the left side of his hair. I rammed his head into the wall. He was still moaning and breathing. I walked out of the cell to leave him alone. I heard the crazy moaning, so I grabbed the pin off the floor where I had thrown it and went back into his cell. I got back over him and ran the pin up his right nostril. I closed his left nostril with my left hand and started choking him with my right hand. The sheet was still around his neck. I was choking him above the sheet. Throughout all of the above, he was moaning and breathing. I kept checking him to see if he was dead. I would check his pulse on his wrist and put my ear beside his neck and chest to hear if he was breathing. I wanted him to be dead at that time. Freddie ended his statement by saying, I really did it because I was wrongly convicted of murder.
Yeah, that makes zero sense.
I murdered a man because I was wrongly convicted of murder. You know, the one thing that struck me was how detailed this was, right? This explanation of how he killed Christopher Lee is almost as if he's regaling it. You know, he's telling the story with a hint of satisfaction.
I certainly don't hear any remorse.
No, and I think it goes back to maybe, you know, some of these people saying he wanted to kill as many people as he could. An internal review into the murder of Christopher Lee revealed no wrongdoing by jail personnel. The murder was a well-calculated savage attack in the presence of 9 other inmates who made no effort to stop the assault or alert jail officials. And I've never been to prison. I'll just throw that out there. I don't know what kind of peer pressure there is when you have 11 men in a cell and 2 of them go at it. But for 9 people to stand by and watch as Freddie Owens ended Christopher Lee's life, all right, you got to put some of that on them.
Yeah, but I think at that moment, they were probably like, I don't want involved. I don't want someone to think that I actually had something to do with this because they walked in at the wrong time.
So you're thinking like prison code.
Yeah.
They don't want to be a snitch. And yeah, I get that.
I'll keep to myself, do my own thing. Don't worry about what's going on over there. That's them.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, obviously, you would like for someone to have stepped up and either stopped it while this guy was still alive or alerted officials, but we're not naive to how things work in prison. Nobody wants to be seen as a snitch because they don't want to be the person on the receiving end of the next beating.
That's true. But I'm also wondering where's the guards at? I know they made so many trips in that time frame, but how did they not see this? How did they not hear I'm sure there was some rowdiness going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they did a number of checks, right? I'm assuming they just looked in, they saw that, you know, there was nothing going on, or they didn't see anything going on when they looked through the little window or whatever it was, and they went to the next pod. Greenville County Administrator Gerald Seal said during a news conference, "You have an assault that took place where the individuals involved kept the victim quiet. They muffled him, and there was no noise that could be heard." So, I mean, according to this guy, it wasn't just 9 guys standing by and not doing or saying anything. He is saying they played some type of role in keeping Christopher quiet while this attack took place.
Yeah, if that's true, that's a whole different story, right?
A second inmate, 19-year-old Fred Walker Jr., was charged with helping Owens with the beating. Authorities obtained sworn statements from witnesses who implicated Walker. And so maybe what Owens said isn't 100% truthful, right? He said that Christopher Lee was knocked out with 1 punch. If that's the case, you don't need someone else to help muffle this guy. Now, maybe he is knocked out, but moaning and making some noise, and maybe that's what it was. You know, even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details.
Hey, listeners, it's Leon Nafok. I'm here to tell you about a brand new series from me and Prologue Projects, an Audible original series called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer, the story of a television show that changed the world and the man who gave it his name. But did you know that before the Jerry Springer Show made him notorious all over the world, Springer was something else entirely? A respected Midwestern politician, the progressive mayor of a major Rust Belt city, a man many saw as a future leader in Democratic politics. How did this idealistic rising star, with his lofty political ambitions, take a turn in such a radically different direction? You can find the whole series available now on Audible. Just search for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer on the Audible app, or go to audible.com/Springer.
Ultimately, Freddie Owens was never tried for the murder of Christopher Lee. And I don't know if that was one of those calculated decisions, Gibbs, that prosecutors sometimes make. He was already sentenced to death. What else were they going to give him? Stephen Golden was later sentenced to 28 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter.
Well, 28 years could have been worse if he didn't help out.
Now I'm thinking, his testimony, the pleading guilty probably had a role in that amount. In 2001, Freddie Owens was granted the new sentencing trial by the South Carolina Supreme Court. The court found that the prosecution brought up the murder of Christopher Lee during sentencing in the Irene Graves case. The judge didn't give the defense enough time to respond. And it was such a strange scenario, right? He's convicted on the 15th. He kills Christopher on the 16th, and then his sentencing happens on the 17th.
Pretty quick, right? Activity-wise, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, the timeline is very short. The sentencing retrial started in February 2003. According to the Greenville News, Owen testified that he was the creation of a white society that taught him how to kill. He said he didn't care what the judge decided and mentioned that he converted to Islam in prison. Freddie asked the court, "Why should I abide, obey, acknowledge, and accept any rules? I ain't got no place here." Freddie Owens was resentenced to death on February 14th, 2003. But you're not doing yourself any favors there with some of the things that you're saying. After an appeal, the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned the death sentence a second time. The court ruled that the judge made inappropriate comments about capital sentencing juries. The second resentencing trial started in November 2006, and Freddie Owens was sentenced to death a third time on November 11th.
All right. So maybe this one will hold.
Well, he didn't care the first two times.
No, he didn't.
So I don't imagine that he cared a whole lot the third time either. His execution was delayed for years due to appeals and the state's difficulty with obtaining drugs for lethal injections. And you and I have had that crop up in many cases. There were, a number of years there where they just couldn't get the drugs to carry out, lethal injection. In 2021, South Carolina was authorized to create a firing squad to give inmates a choice between it or the electric chair, which was the default execution method if drugs were unavailable. Inmates sued, arguing cruel and unusual punishment. 2021, we're bringing back firing squads in South Carolina. And there's the electric chair if drugs are not available.
I'd almost think I'd take the firing squad over the electric chair, though. Just give me somebody who's really good at aiming.
Yeah, I don't know about that firing squad.
No,
because you could get hit and they got to shoot you again.
Yeah.
You get somebody with the shakes.
It's better than shaking in that electric chair.
Oh, yeah, that can't be pleasant either. I mean, none of it's good,
No.
right? Don't do anything that's going to make you choose between a firing squad, the electric chair, or lethal injection. In the spring of 2023, the South Carolina legislature passed a shield law to keep lethal injection drug suppliers secret. On July 31st, 2024, the state Supreme Court ruled that death row inmates could be executed by firing squad, lethal injection, or the electric chair. Gibbs, that was earlier this year.
Yeah.
On September 18th, 2024, Freddie Owens' co-defendant Stephen Golden filed a statement with the South Carolina Supreme Court. Golden wrote that Freddie Owens was not present when Irene Graves was shot.
Now that's interesting. Now, at this point, this far into it, you're going to change your story.
And you have to wonder why. According to the Washington Post, he wrote that he blamed Owens because he was high on cocaine, and the police pressured him by saying they already knew the two of them were together, and Owens was talking. Golden wrote, "I thought the real shooter or his associates might kill me if I named him to police. I am still afraid of that, but Freddie was not there. I'm coming forward now because I know Freddie's execution date is September 20th. And I don't want Freddie to be executed for something he didn't do. This has weighed heavily on my mind, and I want to have a clear conscience." Golden also claimed he had a secret deal with prosecutors and never told the jury about it, which is why he claimed Owens shot Irene Graves. Golden didn't name the person he claimed shot Irene because, as he said, he fears they will kill him.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe him.
Well, he said it was weighing heavily on his mind. But he waited till, essentially the last minute.
Yeah.
After the filing, Owens' attorney asked the state Supreme Court to delay the execution and grant a new trial, arguing Golden was the only witness to the crime. His attorneys wrote, per the Washington Post, "If this court does not grant a stay, Owens will die for a crime that he did not commit." On September 19th, a 5-judge panel wrote, "There was no reason to reconsider its previous decisions and denied the stay of execution. There was no evidence Golden had an independent attorney to talk to about his recent statements, and he didn't name the alleged real shooter. The court determined that the recanted testimony is among the least reliable evidence." So I think they're pretty much siding with you. They don't believe you. They don't find his recantation credible at all.
Yeah, I think it's a little late coming to the show with that.
Yeah, and it does seem kind of like a last-ditch effort to help save his one-time buddy. Prosecutors pointed out that other friends testified that they and Owens planned to rob the store. They also said Owens bragged about killing Irene Graves and confessed to 5 people, including 2 officers and his former girlfriend.
Yeah, so if he didn't do it, why would he talk to all these individuals about it? I get people like to brag, try to get some credit, out there that I'm a badass.
Yeah, up their street cred and all that.
But it really came across as if he really did do it.
Well, yeah, and it could be true that Golden was the only person in the store, but there was a whole bunch of other people that, he confessed to that he shot Irene Graves. Prosecutors argued that Golden's new statement shouldn't be enough to stop the execution because he admitted to lying under oath, proving he is untrustworthy. And he did admit to lying under oath, but they were happy to have his testimony when it went against Owen. Now that it's not, they're calling him untrustworthy.
Of course, yeah.
On September 20th, Owen's mother, Dora Mason, called on the state to investigate the new evidence and commute Freddie's sentence to life in prison, saying, "Freddie is more than his conviction. He is a human being, a son, a brother, and a friend. He deserves compassion, understanding, and a fair chance at justice." And I get that coming from a mother. No mother wants to see their son be put to death. But on the flip side, you know who really deserved compassion, understanding, and a fair chance?
Yeah.
Irene Graves.
Sure did.
And she didn't get it.
No.
Attorneys for Governor Henry McMaster and the state DOC wrote in a court filing that day that there was no compelling reason to delay the execution. Freddie Owens was executed on the evening of September 20th, 2024. He was 46 years old. I mean, as we sit here and tape this, that was last week.
Yeah. I mean, he was 19
when he committed the murder.
Yeah.
And he was 46 years old when he was put to death. He died by lethal injection. The execution began at 6:35 p.m. and he was declared dead at 6:55.
20 minutes. I don't know. Seems like a little long period of time.
Yeah, I don't know if it took 20 minutes for him to die, but and as I mentioned early on, Owens was the first person executed in the state of South Carolina in 13 years. That is a long time.
It is.
To go between executions. Now, I get it. You know, there are some states like California who haven't executed anyone in a long time, but they're not planning to. They're not planning to start back up, as far as I know. Irene's daughter, Inslee Gravesley, said the execution brought closure. She was just 10 years old when her mother died.
Well, I'm sure that closure was heavily needed.
And we really haven't talked about Irene's two kids, right? 8, 10 years old. She was a single mother working 3 jobs to provide for these children. What happened to these kids? I don't know, because I didn't find anything in the research about it.
Yeah.
They were either taken in by family or they were put into the system. But either way, their lives changed forever. They had a mother who loved them more than anything, was willing to essentially work herself to the bone to make sure that they didn't, go without anything they needed or wanted. And that person was all of a sudden gone from their life.
Yeah.
According to CBS, 5 other death row inmates are currently out of appeals. The state can schedule executions every 5 weeks. There are 25 inmates on death row in South Carolina. Protesters gathered outside the prison on the day of Freddie Owens' execution, and there are questions of whether the state executed a man before reviewing all the evidence. Paul Bowers, a spokesman for the South Carolina ACLU, told the Washington Post, there was more than a shadow of a doubt about his guilt, and now the state has killed him. There is no turning back, and that rests on the conscience of the governor and of all of us here in South Carolina. If you believe Freddie Golden, then there was more than a shadow of a doubt. But, how does that one statement, play against all of the other evidence? Now, you can make an argument that, all right, they could have given him a stay. They could have looked into it more, I guess. But it sounds like all of it was reviewed and they said, hey, this doesn't change our decision.
Yeah.
Just because this guy has changed his story, because we don't find him credible. But I understand the other side of it. If you're anti-death penalty, you don't want anyone to be executed, let alone a man whose accomplice has just come out and said, hey, I'm now changing my story, and I'm saying this guy wasn't even there.
But waited until the final hour to make that statement.
Yeah, which I think was part of the reason maybe why his statement was not found to be that credible, along with his past and his lying under oath before. I'm sure they took all of that into account. But, this debate over the death penalty and people being on one side or the other, it's never going to end as long as the death penalty exists. You're going to have some who are for it, and you're going to have some who are totally against it.
Yeah, always.
But at the end of the day, as we wrap this one up, Freddie Owens was convicted in a court of law. He had his death sentence overturned multiple times, and every time he ended up with a new death sentence. He had higher courts reviewing all of his appeals. It doesn't stop some people from thinking that an innocent man was executed. But for that to be true, a lot of people would have had to have lied at his trial. A lot of people.
In my opinion, is that didn't happen.
That he's guilty. He shot Irene. Yeah, I mean, I see that.
He did brag about it a lot, and the jury found him guilty.
I just go back to, some of the things that he was said to have said, right? Imagine him being behind the counter. It's a pretty small space, probably. He's trying to get Irene Graves to open the safe. It's not happening. And he says, "Oh, well," and then shoots her in the head.
Yeah. And then he steps outside and says, I shot that whore, or I killed that whore.
Again, we're relying on testimony of other people,
Sure.
but a lot of other people. His girlfriend said he wanted to be the most prolific murderer in Greenville, South Carolina history. Now, could all of these people have been lying? I guess so.
Yeah, you could always say could have.
But the jury didn't think so.
No.
And, that's what we have to go by. And I also go back to, this kind of robbery spree. And then the shooting of Irene, what'd they get away with, Gibbs? $36 or something like that.
$37, man. Really?
Just so senseless. But that's it for our episode on Freddie Owens. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name is Gretchen, and I live just up the road from you guys in Northwest Ohio near Toledo. I have to tell you, I've never left a voicemail for a podcast before, and I've listened to lots of them. But today I was listening to your first episode on Albert Fish. I think it's episode number 400. And when you, Mike, were talking about self-flatulation or whatever that is, I was laughing so hard. I was in my car. I was laughing so hard when you couldn't decide if that meant hitting yourself with some implement on the back or farting. I'm telling you, I was laughing so hard, I could hardly drive. Anyways, sixth grade humor really never goes out of style. And I just wanted to tell you guys how much I love your podcast. I listen religiously, and I love your banter back and forth. And you do such great history into these stories, and you're always so respectful of the victims that I really appreciate it. Anyways, Gretchen from up near Toledo saying, keep your head on a swivel and keep your own time ticking.
Hey, didn't you shart yourself during that episode?
May have.
I thought you did.
May have.
I think you sharted.
What's interesting to me is that, people find stuff like that funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to figure out, is the right word flatulation? After the fact, I know.
Yeah.
But in the moment I'm saying it, I'm trying to really figure out which one is hitting yourself and which one is farting.
And now you know.
But people find it funny. I'm fine with that.
You're very funny. You're a funny guy.
What are you saying? I'm like a clown?
Hey.
I make people laugh?
Good morning, Mike and Gibby. Just wanted to give a shout out and say congratulations on the 400th episode. I was listening it on my way to work. It has been an amazing 8 years. I've enjoyed listening to each and every podcast. Just a good shout out from Las Vegas. Thank you and congratulations once again.
Love yourself some Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the voicemail. And it has been an amazing 8 years. We're coming up on our 8-year anniversary in about 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that we've been doing it this long.
What'd
It
you
really
give me?
is.
8 years.
What'd I get you?
Yeah.
Not a desk.
Not
I got you not a desk. We had some mailbag. Carly sent in some really cool handcrafted magnets for the studio fridge. Awesome. One says Team Fergie, one says Team Gibby, and one says Team TCAT.
Should I go look and see how they're placed?
Team TCAT, Team Fergie, Team Gibby. As it should be.
As it should be.
Because I was the one that put them on the fridge.
And it is in your
It is in my house too. So
yeah.
Jana Bauernfeind sent us a little pot from Colorado.
Some pot?
Yeah. No.
Rolled up in a joint?
A little pot. It really is a little.
I just heard you say we got some pot.
It really is a little handcrafted pot that says, "This is a little pot from Colorado." It's cute.
That's funny. Yeah.
And it's got a little magnet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty funny stuff.
So you can't smoke it.
No, you cannot smoke.
Okay.
Well, I assume you can't. I don't know. It could be made of pot for all I know.
Hemp
or something. But yeah,
awesome. Thanks.
We appreciate all of that stuff. That's it, buddy, for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Inspired by the hit Wondery podcast Against the Odds comes the gripping guidebook, How to Survive Against the Odds, Tales and Tips for Animal Attacks and Natural Disasters. This might just be the most important book you'll ever read. Go inside life or death situations where everyday people survived nature's most extreme scenarios, and learn how you can too. In these tales, you'll hear about the grit, willpower, and know-how needed to endure shipwrecks, alligator attacks, earthquakes, and more. You'll learn from experts, including top doctors, about what happens to your body and mind in life-threatening situations. Plus, important tips on what to do, and equally important, what not to do when faced with a situation that is truly against the odds. Go to survivalguidebook.com to pre-order How to Survive Against the Odds today and get the perfect gift in time for graduation and Father's Day.